I spent my summer vacations at my grandfather's cabin in upstate New York. It was a beautiful place, built from heavy logs and surrounded by a wraparound porch. But it sat right on the edge of an old-growth forest that my grandfather strictly forbade me from entering. He wasn't a paranoid man, but he was dead serious about those woods. He told me people got turned around in there within minutes because the trees grew too close together, blocking out the sun. He claimed the forest layout changed, that trails vanished into thin air, and that the wilderness had a way of swallowing people whole. I obeyed him for years, content to swim in the lake and read on the porch, until the summer I turned 16. That was the year my cousin, Leo, came to stay with us. Leo was a year older, reckless, and wore his boredom like a badge of honor. By our second week there, the cabin felt too small, the lake too quiet, and the forbidden woods too tempting. "He's just trying to keep us from having actual fun," Leo said one afternoon, tossing a stone into the dense tree line. "It's just trees. What's it going to do, eat us? He's just old and superstitious." I tried to argue, bringing up my grandfather's warnings, but the strong pull of FOMO won me over, just like it always did. I didn't want to spend the rest of the summer being called a coward. We waited until our grandfather took his heavy afternoon nap, grabbed 2 flashlights, pocketed a couple of pocket knives, and slipped past the rusted barbed wire fence that marked the property line. The transition was immediate. The moment we stepped under the canopy, the bright July heat vanished, replaced by a damp, unnatural chill. The silence was heavy. The chirp of cicadas from the lawn died instantly, replaced by the muffled crunch of our boots on centuries of dead pine needles. We walked for about 20 minutes, Leo laughing and using his pocket knife to snap and notch branches to mark our path. Despite the chill, a strange, suffocating humidity began to build the deeper we went. The air smelled thick and foul, like stagnant swamp water and old copper. "All right, this is getting kind of boring," Leo admitted, his bravado finally dipping as he stopped and looked around. The trees here were identical, masses of dark, twisted pine trunks that seemed to shift depending on which way we turned. The canopy was so thick, it felt like twilight. "Let's head back and hit the lake." We turned around to follow his broken branches, but within 5 minutes, we realized a terrifying reality. The branches were gone. The trees showed no notches, and the forest floor was pristine. Panic, cold and sharp, flooded my system. We had only walked in what felt like a straight line, but suddenly every single direction looked exactly the same. "Leo, where's the path?" I asked, my voice thin and fragile against the vast dampness. It's this way. Come on," he muttered, his pace quickening into a panicked jog. We ran for what felt like an hour, our breathing ragged, the shadows lengthening as the faint light above began to die. Just as I felt my legs violently shaking from exhaustion, the dense trees abruptly gave way, and we broke into a small, perfect clearing. In the center of the clearing sat a structure that made us freeze. It was an old, dilapidated well, built from dark, moss-covered stones. The wooden crank at the top was rotted through, and a thick, rusted iron chain disappeared down into the black abyss of the pit. "What the hell is a well doing all the way out here?" Leo whispered, wiping sweat from his forehead. Before I could answer, a sound echoed from the depths of the stone pit. It was a voice, a soft, muffled voice crying out into the dark. "Help me. Please, I'm stuck down here. It's so cold." It sounded exactly like a young girl, terrified and weeping. Leo's eyes went wide, and he immediately took a step toward the stone edge. "Hey, are you okay? Hang on. Leo, stop." I grabbed his arm, pulling him back with all my strength. A sickening knot had just tightened in my stomach. Think about it. We are miles into an abandoned forest. My grandfather said nobody has lived out here for a century. How could a little girl be at the bottom of a dry well? Where are her parents? How did she get here? Leo threw my hand off, his face pale but determined. We can't just leave a kid to die in a hole. He ran to the edge, leaning over the dark opening, shining his flashlight straight down into the blackness. I stood 10 feet back, my heart hammering against my ribs, watching him. The crying from the well stopped abruptly the second the flashlight beam hit the dark. The silence that followed was suffocating. Leo squinted, moving the light around. I don't see anything. It's just black mud." Then the voice returned, but the delivery changed completely. "Help me. Please, I'm stuck down here. It's so cold," the voice repeated. But it wasn't a little girl anymore. The words were delivered in a deep, aggressive, booming male voice. Yet the pitch, the rhythm, and the exact panicked cadence were an identical, flawless mimicry of the child's text. Leo froze, his flashlight trembling violently in his hand. From the darkness of the pit, a wet, rhythmic clink began to echo. The rusted iron chain was moving, rattling against the stone as something heavy pulled itself up from the depths. "Help me. Please." A third voice bled out of the well. This time, it was a high-pitched, childish sing-song voice. Then, a split second later, it shifted into a heavily exaggerated, mocking accent. "It's so cold down here." There was no overlap. The entity at the bottom of the well was rapidly switching between different vocal identities with absolute precision, practicing the dialogue like a sick actor rehearsing in the dark. "Run," I choked out. We didn't look back. We bolted into the thicket, tearing through the briars, screaming into the empty woods. Behind us, the voices grew louder, echoing out of the clearing. It didn't chase us with heavy footsteps. It chased us with sound. The entity began throwing our own voices back at us. I heard Leo's voice screaming from the trees to my left, begging me to wait for him, even though the real Leo was running right beside me, holding my hand. Leo heard my voice crying out from the brush to his right, claiming I had broken my leg and needed help. It was trying to confuse us, to break our focus and lure us apart into the shadows. "Don't look! Don't let go!" Leo roared, his grip on my hand tightening until it hurt. We white-knuckled our grip on each other's jackets, refusing to separate, closing our eyes to the phantom shapes throwing our own names at us from the dark. We ran blindly, scraping our faces against low branches and tripping over roots, driven purely by the primal instinct to survive. Suddenly, the oppressive humidity broke. We violently rolled over the rusted barbed wire fence, crashing hard onto my grandfather's manicured lawn. We lay there panting, bleeding from dozens of scratches, staring up at the sky. The sun was setting, casting long, peaceful golden rays across the green grass. The cicadas were buzzing normally. The transition was so abrupt, it felt like waking up from a nightmare. We crawled onto the porch, just as my grandfather opened the screen door, rubbing his eyes from his nap. He took one look at our torn clothes, our bloody hands, and the pure, unadulterated terror in our eyes. He didn't ask what happened. He just looked out at the dark tree line, sighed heavily, and locked the door. We never spoke about it. Leo and I packed our bags and caught a bus back to the city the very next morning, leaving the country entirely behind. We grew apart after that summer. The shared trauma was a wedge neither of us knew how to bridge. I'm an adult now, and I live in a high-rise apartment in the center of the city, as far away from the woods as physically possible. I like the noise of traffic and the bright glare of streetlights. But sometimes, when the wind howls through the concrete canyons outside my window late at night, I swear I can hear my own teenage voice calling out from the dark, perfectly mimicking the night I almost died. And worst of all, sometimes the voice answers itself, switching to a deep, booming laugh that doesn't belong to any human being. Double tap if your chest just tightened. Share this with someone who loves scary stories, and hit that follow button right now so you never miss another midnight nightmare.